Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. All right, let's see if they had any questions. Yes? I think he's going to bring the microphones to you.
Do we have a volunteer for mic duty today?
Thank you. Guruji, namaste. I have 3 questions.
Okay.
First one is, from what I know, Rudra means Shiva.
Yeah.
And Shiva means auspiciousness. And Rudra means tears, from what I know. So how can auspicious and tears be equated?
Yeah.
My second question, should I go ahead or should I ask later?
Ask later.
Okay.
Just do one at a time. So this I was going to take up tomorrow, but since you asked, I will just briefly tell you. The idea of Rudra being bringing tears and Shiva being auspicious is not the complete picture and not really accurate in that sense. Both are the same person. There is only one person that we are talking about, which is Ishvara. And so they have different personalities. So this is what we will start with tomorrow, and we already started today. That like a parent that punishes the child and is angry at him and is upset and is making sure that he is punished, is also looking for the good of the child. And the same parent who now becomes calm and supportive is the same person. So Rudra is Shiva, as we will see. So Shiva doesn't mean auspicious only. It just means including auspiciousness, whatever is necessary to gain the auspiciousness is also Shiva. So the analogy of a parent, I think, is a very good one, because they love the child. They're doing punishment and rewards and love and so on, all for the good of the child. So the Rudra specifically brings it out as having a dual personality. Shiva in the lore of it does not bring it out as much, but they are really both the same person per se. We'll talk more about this tomorrow.
Thank you. My other question is Maheshananda Swami Giri. It says Giri in the end.
Yes.
Usually it says Saraswati, right? Dayananda Saraswati.
Right.
So why is it Giri?
So there are different sampradayas. And it all goes to the same Advaita Vedanta Sampradaya, but you have different families that grow out of it. And the last name is, so it depends upon the parampara, the Guru Shishya parampara. So some of them go all the way up to Giri, and the other one goes up to Saraswati. But it's really pretty much the same. But there is probably more to it that I have never really inquired into it, and I'm not qualified to really go any more detail about it. But it doesn't really matter. This is exactly the same. I think the main thing more importantly is, and I've had a lot of discussions with Swami Viditatmananda ji also on this. As one progresses in the understanding of the Vedanta, you become the judge. whether somebody is saying something which is inconsistent with what your guru had said, you know. And so when I started my study with Swami Maheshanandaji's texts, I had really been studying Vedanta with Swami Dayanand for, I don't know, 30 years. And so, because I've known him since 1975, 1976. So I would consider that I had a fairly serious and good understanding of what the acharyas are saying. And so when I examined the books by Swami Maheshanandaji, I was the examiner to see whether what he says is that consistent with Swami Dayanandji or not. And the answer became yes, yes, yes throughout. And so just like examining the mirror, I stopped examining the mirror. They're exactly saying the same thing. And this is one of the joys of really studying Vedanta. This is brought out, we actually talked about this in the Brahma Sutra class called Samanvaya. In fact, that is the fourth sutra of Badarayana, Tattu Samanvayat. So Samanvayat means that any Upanishad you take, any Shakha of the Vedas you take, any Smriti that you take, any Itihasa that you take, any Purana that you take, they all have the same endings, Tatparya. The way they go about it may be different. Like the story of the Vamana in the Vishnu Sahasrana, in the Vishnu Purana, may be different. And so they are meant for a purpose because the human being what it is, we like to see examples a lot. So Upanishad tends to be studied by people who are cut to the chase. I want the truth. I don't want any stories or anything like this. What is it? But there are other people who are not quite there yet. They want to have some embellishment. So there are levels of our literature that appeal to different people. And the same thing is true for the Karma Kanda of the Vedas, because there are, I would say, probably multiple times of people who all they want to do is puja. They want to do Vedanta, and don't tell me any of that. That is all dry and shushka. But doing namaskara and so on and so forth appeals to them. And the Vedas know this. So they say, fine, just in this life you just do that. Some time will come when even doing enough pujas doesn't really get you to, your life is still unfulfilled. This is when you will start looking for something more. So that's fine. So it doesn't mean that it's the same, it's not the same medicine for all the diseases. Every disease has its own medicine per se. So that's how it is that yeah, that's pretty much what I want to say.
Thank you. And my third question is, why is Rudra called Rudra Prashna?
That is a good question. I don't know if I have the answer to that. We'll have to ask Swami Viditatmananda. I think the Prashna is a technical term. Is a technical term in Vedas, which is not the same as a question. Prashna is one and the answer is called a question. It's not that, but it has to do with the style, I think. But quite honestly, I don't know. If something was explained to me, I don't remember it, which I give some credence to, because at some point, if something was said and I don't remember it, in my view of looking at it, is not that important. And so, but quite honestly, that's a good question. When Swami V comes, hopefully in the next couple of days, we can reserve all these tough questions for him.
Thank you so much.
All right.
May I ask a question then,
sure.
Guruji? So, we have 11 Anuvakas in Rudram that we are reading. Quick Google search shows there are things called Namakam, Chamakam, and maybe more Anuvakas. So our 11, how are they structured?
Yeah. So this is where some tradition also comes in how is not the generic meaning of the Sri Rudram. This kind of question that you're asking is not generic to the meaning of Rudram, but it pertains to tradition. Tradition is important on how you have discipline in doing so. So I'll comment on that in a minute. So what Chamakam does, the Chamakam also has 11 chapters, right? So what is traditionally done is that you chant one Anuvaka, and I think preceded or followed, I'm not even sure of that, by one Chamakam. Followed? Followed. Okay, thank you. It's followed by one Chamakam. Then you go to the second Anuvaka and you're followed by the second Chamakam. So this is how it is done per se. But it all depends on the use and the type of prayers that are done. For example, if you go to a temple where Vedanta is not taught, it is just pujas and vidhis and so on and so forth, then the use of Chamakam and Rudram is slightly different. You see, Chamakam, of course, means it is asking for some benefits in this life. See, so Rudram in particular, and the Vedantic study in general, as it is unfolded by our teachers, say that both the material success as well as spiritual success is given by Ishvara for a sincere student. Okay, so let me comment on that for a minute. Now, what they say is that if you are really very sincere in your effort in understanding Vedanta, then Ishvara does the following. You do not lack material goods to the extent that your study will be affected, and you do not get material goods so much that your studies will be affected. So it is done in a manner that neither you are starving nor are you completely after the material goods to the extent, which is exactly what happened. This is what is called punya and papa, both are bandhakam. Papa is bandhakam because you have a stomach ache and you cannot come to the class. This is papam, papajanya phalam. Punya janam karma is, which is much more, by the way, than the papajanam karma. You go to somebody who are having a wonderful party and so on and say, please come to Vedanta. They'll say, why? This is, I remember so interestingly, when you were at my age, you've seen a lot. And so a lot of the friends would say, why are you doing this? So you're being polite and say, you can't say that this is, you cannot really just say this is for moksha and I want to be the Mahatma and all that. They won't understand any of that, they will laugh at you. So all you can say is, this is for my own happiness, so I'm doing it for my own. So they retort to it and say, well, I'm doing it for my happiness without studying Vedanta. So what's so special about that? So if you have a lot of material success, you are not going to study Vedanta. You will say, maybe later, not at this point. I'm having too much fun. You don't have time for study or anything like this. Let me just enjoy. So both punya and papa are kept in mind by, and this is all done by Ishvara. We may not realize it in our lives, but a sincere student of Vedanta will not starve, neither will you be distracted. Because if you start to make a lot of money on stock market, then you'll say, well, this is fun. I'm twice my assets that I had last year. So I'll come to Vedanta later on. Right now, let me just... So that doesn't happen. So in Vedanta they say that Ishvara, going back to Chamakam, I still have not replied to you, depends on who's chanting Chamakam. So if you are going to a temple, they're asking for, I want this. Chamakam means also give me this. It's just like you, Ishvara says, okay, what do you want? Just give me your list of things that you want. So you say, oh really? Anything? He says, yeah, anything. You want anything. Okay. Let me have, then you have a long list. This is what Chamakam is. Okay? And so, and by the way, this is all possible. We're not talking about theory here. This is absolutely, this is going to happen. If you do the prayers and so on, you'll get the results, if that's what you want. But is that what you want? So here, the Vedanta use of Chamakam and the various Anuvakas is, you leave it up to the Lord. And this is why traditionally we do one Chamakam in the beginning. So you don't just ignore it completely, but you don't do to the extent that the temples are doing. This, reminds me of a joke where you say, this person was told, hey, listen, have you offered, do you offer to your money to the, shouldn't you be offering your money to the Lord? He says, yes, I do. Absolutely I do. So he says, how? What do you do that? He says, I take a bunch of coins and I throw up high and I say, Lord, take anything you want to. And whatever is left, give it back to me. And he says, he always comes back to me. So I know that he doesn't want it. So I'm okay. I'm just doing that. So, so the traditional use of Chamakam and Rudram is important to see. What is the context of the tradition? And that's why it is done differently at different places. Yeah. Uh-huh.
They chant before Rudram. So people typically chant something called Lagunyasa before Rudram.
Correct.
What is that?
So Lagunyasa, so Nyasa is itself Laghu form of Sannyasa. So Sannyasa means Samyak Nyasa. Nyasa means giving up. Nyasa means to give up something. It is just, it is Tyaga. It's Tyaga based. It's another word for Tyaga. Okay? So, so Nyasa means that please, so this is kind of like a dhyana shloka. Just like we talked about the dhyana shloka before. So you condition your mind, kind of like what we did in Sankalpa in the morning class for the meditation, where you prepare your mind, or not condition, but prepare your mind to get ready for what is coming. So the Nyasa is, may I have the attitude to give up things and I not retain it to myself. You just please take this and so on. And so the Laghu Nyasa is a shorter form of Nyasa. There is full Nyasa, which takes a long time to chant. But here it is just again part of the traditional use of Vedanta. You just prepare your mind to give up. You're not doing sannyasa yet, because that only comes with diksha and a very formal process and so on, and it's a much more serious thing. But here you say, may I inculcate a sense of giving up as a preliminary step to the chanting of any thing. It could be done anywhere, so on. So that's what Laghu Nyasa is. It's a short form of Nyasa, which itself is a short form of sannyasa. Not a short form, but a incomplete sannyasa is called Nyasa. And Laghu Nyasa is a very short form of that, because again, the idea is if you are doing in temples, for example, I just got an invitation from the Livermore temple just today actually. They want me to participate in, they have a Mahabhishekam. And so last time I did that in Mahabhishekam, they chant, I believe, Rudram, I forget the exact time, but I think like 4,000 times. They have to chant a particular 1,000 numbers. So what they do is, they have to have a certain number of people that chant Rudram every day. So let's say there are like 50 people. So 50 people chant maybe about 4 times, so that's 200. So 200, and so you do this over 11, 12 days, and then the full one is given. So there, they had given me an invitation to attend on, I think it's the 6th of July, and I just accepted it. And then later on they said, we want you to talk for 15 minutes. I said, this is wonderful, because I'm already talking about Sri Rudram, I'm going to do that. So I just told them, okay, I'll come. So when you're doing it there, then they do it with full Nyasa. They don't do it with Laghu Nyasa. And several times, I think. They have, I mean, I don't even know the procedures. I have no idea. So there's a vidhi. And so vidhi says that if you're going to do that many rudrams, so this is how many nyasas you have to do. All of that is there. But in our case, again, the same question that I was answering earlier, that you go into the spirit of it, but you don't have to do vidhi in that sense. Yeah, this is interesting. Again, Swami Maheshananji was pointing this out, and I really enjoyed that. He was saying that the practice of doing prayers is different from between Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. In Karma Kanda, you follow the vidhi. In Jnana Kanda, you don't need to, there is no vidhi. There is no niyama, there is no rule. And what that means is, in fact, should be without rules. What it means is, your memory of Ishvara should happen at any time, at any place. In the Karma Kanda, you cannot do a prayer unless you have cleaned yourself. You have taken a bath, you have brushed your teeth, and you're wearing clean clothes at a particular time. This is what all the sankalpa is all about. Mama upatta, samastaduri, all of this, it's called vidhi. You cannot do prayer lying down in the bed. You have to sit down. Jnana Kanda, you should be doing it while you're lying on the bed. Why should you not do it? Just say Om Namah Shivaya, and go to sleep. Waking up, the first thing you do is Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. And any time you're in the bathroom, that's perfectly okay. you're outside, any time is okay and in fact recommended. There is no vidhi for it. So the same thing applies to different contexts at different times. So that's how it is. So nyasa also, the lagu nyasa is just done in Vedanta as developing the spirit of the prayer. But if I were in a temple, I would use it differently. Yeah.
Could I ask one more question? So Sri Rudram appears in Yajurveda. So is it part of Karmakanda or Jnanakanda?
So it are both. That's an interesting question. Very interesting question. It appears in both. Yeah. So it's both for material.
It appear multiple times within Yajurveda?
Yes. Again, I am not an expert on that. I think if I just give you a definite answer to that, all I know is that in all shakhas of the Vedas, it appears. Practically all shakhas. And how many there are and whether it's multiple or so on, I am not an expert on that. So I couldn't give you a definitive answer for that. It's just that it's very, very prevalent, more than anything else. And one other interesting thing, the Panchakshari, or Namah Shivaya, is contained in Sri Rudram. This is the thing. We will see this in the 8th Anuvaka, which is the center of it. And so as a practice, and I try to do that whenever I am chanting Rudram, when the 8th Anuvaka comes and you say Namah Shivaya, immediately my hands go up. And I should go up. Sometimes I forget, but I should go up. And so that's also contained in the... and Namah Shivaya is the most important mantra. And that's also included in the Sri Rudram. Yeah.
Hari Om Swami, Guruji. Follow up on that question, but before I just wanted to say something about the different names she was saying. In the Sankaracharya Sampradaya, there are 10 orders, I think. It's called Dashanami. That's why they have different names: Saraswati, Giri, Puri, Tirtha. So it's called Dashanami. And Shankaracharya gave, these are the 10 orders.
That's
so
right,
that's how
I did
depends
hear
on which
that.
Sampradaya you come from, you get that name, Puri or Giri or Tirtha or Saraswati.
That's right, I remember that, yes. It started with Adi Shankara.
Right. Follow up on that question, and I had that question before that too. You said Rudram is mentioned in all the shakhas of all the 4 Vedas. So is the entire Rudram in each of these shakhas, or is it like Brahma Sutra, you have taken the relevant things of Rudram and put it all together, somebody put it together? Or is it like the entire 11 Anukasas in each of all the shakhas?
My understanding is that Rudram is very specific. It's the same one, same set of words, same sequence.
In all the shakhas.
In all the shakhas. Let me think about that. That's not completely true. In Shukla Yajurveda, there are sequences are slightly different. And also, in the Krishna Yajurveda, this is a very important thing we are going to do tomorrow. More emphasis is paid on the significance of the arrow as one of the ayudhis, one of the weapons that Rudra has, is called an arrow. And so you can have, when you're a fighter, you have different kind of weapons and so on. And in the traditional way, the arrow was the main one. So the Krishna Yajurveda emphasizes the sequence of the arrow. What is the reason for that, we will see tomorrow. It's a very important one. Shukla Yajurveda, did I say Shukla? No, I meant to say Krishna Yajurveda. Shukla Yajurveda has 95% of the same ones, but there are some slight differences in the sequence between them. Yeah, so it's not, but the bulk of the body remains the same. Yeah, yeah.
So following up to your comments about the several thousand times performing Rudra, is that the same thing like Shatarudri?
Yes, exactly the same. Yeah, there's a lot of commentary on that. Shatarudriya and Rudram is referring to exactly the same thing. Yes.
And then I've heard in some places where they chant Om Namo Bhagavate Rudraya, Om Namo Bhagavate Rudraya, Om Namo Bhagavate Rudraya 3 times, and then they chant Namaste Astu Bhanvane Bahubhyam Utate Nama. I don't know why they do that, but even I've seen that perform here in this ashram, and when we went to Pashupatinath, I've heard that also.
So here, which one were you referring to? Om Namo Bhagavate Dakshinamurtaye? Is that the one?
No. Rudra only. Om Namo Bhagavate Rudraya. Om Namo Bhagavate Rudraya. Om Namo
3 times.
3 times, and then they do the next one. Namaste Astu Dhanvane Bahubhyam Utadena Namo.
Interesting. I have not seen that.
I've seen it here, and when we were in Nepal also.
When did you see that here?
Sometime back, several years ago, whatever. But
okay, that's possible.
Especially when I think Swami Dayananda was sick, at that time also they did that chanting.
So yeah, I think those kinds of traditional use of, though I will consider that to be minor. It's not really intrinsic to the meaning per se. I think this is one of the things about our strength of the Vedic Vidya knowledge in Hindus and so on. If for some reason there are some changes in the way it is implemented, it is okay. We don't, and this is why they say that if there are portions in India and Assam and other where they worship the snakes as Ishvara. And so the non-understanders of Hinduism will say, what, this is so stupid, why are you doing this? This is completely okay. Because what you see is not what you are really praying to, it is the spirit behind it that you are doing it. And so we accept it, all these changes. So I'm just making up an answer. I don't know why that is done. My suspicion is that due to some traditional differences, people just like to do that, and they said preserve it. It's okay, no problems. Yeah.
Namaste, Guruji. My question is slightly different. In the morning, we talked about Shiva is within us, and there is only God. But when we read Gita, then we read, thinking Krishna, basically, and Krishna also says the same. Like, I'm the one who is in you all. And then, so why there are like 2 names are given? Like one in the form of Shiva, one in the form of Krishna. And when there is only just one God. Just right. God, not right. only also one. Right. That's one question.
Yeah. So that is a good question, and the answer to that is that all differences, the varieties, the disparities, ultimately resolve into unity. It's all the same thing. If you want to just understand this in this example, this is a prayer hall, and I'm one of the founders of this institution, so I could almost see when this was being built and how these wood pieces were done. This is so beautiful, curved pieces, the door, and so on. Anyway, I'm going all off track. So this is a prayer hall, with a certain personality. Then you have the dining hall with a certain space, the spaciousness and so on. So that room space is different than this room space. It is different from the kitchen room space. It is different from the bedroom space and so on. So they're all different in that manner. But really speaking, the intrinsic content of all of them is space, which is unlimited. So this room space personality borrows the space and makes it as part of a room, when in fact there has been no change in the space. You haven't done any changes in the space. It's the same space which appears in different forms. So in the case of the Bhagavad Gita is a smriti. And smriti means that it is human-made. This is paurusheya. So all smritis are paurusheya. Paurusheya means that they were done by human beings. Vyasa was the author of Bhagavad Gita. So when you have a paurusheya smriti, or any other text for that matter, you have to think about, who am I writing this for? Who is it meant for? Yeah, it has to be kept in one very much so. When you write a book, you have to think about, are there other books that are like this? Do you need to write another one? Like that you have to do. So you have to justify. Bhagavad Gita is a particular book which is meant for householders who are having problems in life. Arjuna is signifying a significant psychological necessity in his life. He doesn't want to fight at all. He's supposed to be the leader, and he's having a nervous breakdown. And so on a lower level, we all have householders that are having significant problems of one kind or the other. Maybe not that severe, but actually, it's interesting. Do you know the number of suicides that occur every day? I think it's in thousands. If you look at the worldwide population, a very significant number of deaths is suicides. So it's various people they're ready to take their life. This is how serious it is. Anyway, going back to the Bhagavad Gita. So the Bhagavad Gita is a context specifically developed for the householders who are having problems in life. Then how do you get out of that problem? What are the reasons for the problem? And so on. So there, the avatara of Vishnu in the form of Krishna is the face of Ishvara. Avatara means it's the face of Ishvara in a human form. And so, because of his siddhis and so on and so forth, Arjuna had a lot of faith in him. And he said, yes, you are somebody extraordinary. And I want to get your leadership to tell me what my problems are and how I should resolve it. So this is a context. In that context, Ishvara appears as Krishna. So I would liken it to the space allowing itself to become a prayer hall. So the prayer hall means it's a very expensive space, but it is the space. So all diversity eventually resolves into unity. Unity in the sense there's the same space which appears in small space, big space, badly built rooms, well-built rooms, and so on, same space. So therefore, when we say Shiva as the content of each one of us, which is the Atma, which is the Atma itself, as we will see, hopefully progress as we go into this in this week. And so that Atma is the same as the Paramatma. And the Paramatma can appear as either Ishvara. So this is interesting. I will try to address this as part of the teaching itself sometime in the next few days. There are two ways of looking at Ishvara. One is that as a Parameshwara, and the other one is a Paramatma. As a Parameshwara is what is called Saguna Brahma, and as Paramatma it is Nirguna Brahma. But the Saguna Brahma and Nirguna Brahma are the same, because the Saguna Brahma means that the room space is called is Saguna Brahma, and just space is called Nirguna Brahma. And they are essentially the same. And so, in the beginning, it is easier for us to relate to Ishvara, the Saguna Brahma, as Krishna, as Rama, and other avatars, or any other vigraha that you feel attracted to. That's all okay. But if you resolve as to what the essence of that form is, it becomes the Atma itself, which is the same. There's only one Atma, which is the Paramatma, Jivatma. It doesn't matter, it's only one Atma. And so it is correct to say that Shiva alone is, but Shiva appears as Krishna, Shiva appears as Rama, as Vishnu, as Shiva itself, as Rudra itself, and Brahmaji itself. And so all of those are such manifestations of the same Nirguna Brahma, which is the Shiva. Yeah. You still have I thought, a quizzical look on your face. You're not completely, even though you are wearing a mask, but I can tell you did not nod at all. You didn't say, okay, and I understand. You're just still kind of staring at me. So what's still...
So I think it's written, I have read it either in the Gita or in one of the Bhagavatam. So how Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, and I believe Mahesh is what we refer as Lord Shiva, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, is from the Narayan Nabhi. So, and that's where my confusion is there, because although it does not matter in the bigger picture when you start believing and praying, but this is still confusing me, is how I think there is one basically text which explains how these different forms, as you said, are being originated from one Ishvara, which was being referred as Narayan, and how Vedanta is talking about the same basically came from Shiva. So that's the reason that the look which you saw on my face is...
So now that... one thing we should see is that the understanding and the explanation of the spiritual truth is that it has some influence of time on people, how they look at it and so on. So what is said is that in the Vedic literature, because you have to see where is the authentic basis of all of this. And so you have to go through the analysis of, is it man-made or is it not man-made? Anything which is man-made, human-made that is subject to revision and subject to interpretation. One which comes from Ishvara, the only interpretation is your own understanding. There cannot be any other, they cannot have two different interpretations from Ishvara. Ishvara can say, he doesn't say, okay, this is good for you and this is good for you. No, this is the same for everybody. So the Aparusheya means that you have to go through the very authentic source of this knowledge, of understanding of what is going on. And those are given in the Vedas. And the Vedas have essentially 3 parts, or 2 parts if you want to look at Karmakanda, Upasanakanda, and Jnanakanda. And so the understanding is that the Karmakanda and Upasanakanda are preparation for Jnanakanda. Jnanakanda is the one that eventually, don't take our words for it, try to understand it, because all of us want to essentially be limitless in our, we do not want to have any limits on our freedom. It should be unconditional. It should be infinite. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamada. That's what it signifies. We don't want any limitations whatsoever. If that is the case, then one should be mathematically aware, scientifically aware, that you cannot reach infinity. You cannot reach infinity. You can reach a very large number, but you cannot reach infinity. If you cannot reach infinity, then what is the purpose of this, of wanting to be infinite? How can it be? Is this a reasonable desire? No, it's a reasonable but unreasonable, because the way I want to reach infinity is by adding things to me. You can never reach infinity that way. You'll always be a very large number but still finite. The only way to call so-called quote-unquote reach infinity is you are already infinity and you don't know it. Praptasya praptihi. Okay, so that being the case, the only authentic Vedic apaurusheya is the one which says you are already Paramatma, but you just don't know it. There is some difficulty, and we understand it. This is exactly how it is. So this is the Vedic, the original Vedic truth given in the Vedas, all Vedas, not just any one Vedas. So that being the case, where does this controversy comes in, where Shiva is more or Vishnu is more? And that's why it is interesting. Many of these temples, they have found out that we're just going to call it Shiva Vishnu temple. Both of you. It doesn't matter who you want to do that. We'll please both of you. So anyway, to answer your question, the original Vedic knowledge is that Ishvara, the authentic Ishvara is Shiva. Is Shiva. And so then the Vyavaharika Sat, that is the Paramarthika Sat. But Vyavaharika Sat means it could be different interpretations. It's kind of like, the US government is the overall thing, but what their function is depends on who you want. If you are, if you're trying to make more money, then you fight with IRS. If your home is in danger, then you go to the police. If your whole country is in danger, you go to the army. So there are different needs for it, but they're all part of the US government. And so the authentic is Shiva, Rudra and Shiva, and so that's how that we see that to be the case. I think we are. Do we have any more time? Or 8:20. Anyway, I think we're all tired, I'm sure. So good. We will continue this dialogue tomorrow, and I'm very hoping that Swami Viditapananda ji also comes. So we will badger him with tough questions like Rudra Prashna. That's what we can do that. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.